Kayak, the summer travel season quickly approaching, where millions of Americans will take to the skies and expected to spend more than $2,000 on each vacation on average. So how have recent global events like the terrorist attacks in Europe and the opening of trade relations with Cuba changed the travel trends? Joining us right now is the CEO of Kayak, Steve Hafner. Steve, good to see you.
Good to see you too,
Thanks
Maria.
so much for joining us. Have you seen a change in the trends in terms of travel going into the summer?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at Kayak, we actually have a good lens on where people are going because of all the billions of travel queries we see. And we just today released a summer travel hacker guide that you can visit Kayak and take a look at. But, you know, in general, the tried and true destinations are still popular, which is Europe and the Caribbean. And there's never been a better time to travel right now because fuel prices are low, so airfares are low. With the rise of Booking.com and Airbnb and HomeAway, you've got hotel accommodations that you never saw before, and the dollar is still really strong. Yeah. So it's a great time for Americans to get abroad.
Even one thing out that's got everybody spooked right now, and I know your family just changed plans, and that's the Zika virus. People are canceling their vacations to the Caribbean.
Yeah, you know, the Zika virus, we have seen an impact to that, but, you know, the science on that is still a little bit uncertain, and consumer demand for the Caribbean isn't actually as strong as it used to be. It's actually more about Europe. So we're more concerned about the terrorism threat and the overhang there than we are about Zika.
Has there been an impact on European travel bookings because of the terrorist?
Absolutely, but it's not to the same duration or severity that we saw with the Paris attacks. So, you know, I think anyone in the travel business shudders when you hear about terrorism for two reasons. One, it suppresses consumer interest in going abroad. And the second, for those of you who are traveling, it makes it a little bit more cumbersome because of security, additional security. But, you know, for whatever reason, with Brussels, we saw a lower dip, shorter duration, and more localized than we saw with Paris.
So yesterday I sent my oldest daughter off to Portugal for a school trip, 7th grade trip. But you know, what concerned me was the migrant crisis over in Europe. I know it doesn't affect Portugal specifically, but terrorism obviously. But this is, I think, a little bit more under the radar. But it's a real concern, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the migrant crisis as well is something that's subsiding. It gets a lot of press, but actually when you're in Europe, and I go to Europe all the time, I was actually going on Sunday, you don't feel it as much unless you're in major metropolitan train stations, really.
Okay. What would be a really cool place that's kind of off the grid, you know, not Paris or something that you see people going to that you'd recommend for a trip? Yeah, in Europe. In
Europe, you know, I'm a big fan of the Dalmatian coast and Italy. So the Dalmatian coast is great because it's cheap and it's beautiful and you don't pay the same high prices that you see in Italy. And it's relatively easy to get to. I will say if you're willing to travel a bit further afield, I just got back from the Maldives a few weeks ago. If you're willing to tolerate a 24-hour flight through Dubai, it's a wonderful place to visit.
What about pricing? Hotel rooms right now, airfare. I mean, I get you on the strong dollar. There's a reason to go to Europe. Your dollar's going to get you more. But what about my hotel room and the flights in terms of pricing right now? Any bargains to be had?
It's cheaper than it historically has been because you've got new airlines flying between the U.S. and Europe, like Norwegian Airlines, who has a great product and service and is really cheap. And then, you know, you don't have to stay in hotels anymore. You've got Airbnb and HomeAway, so you can get non-hotel accommodations at a very reasonable price point, and you can use Kayak to find all of that.
Does your family, Sandra, usually take a vacation in the summer? I mean,
no, but so we're gonna be fly fishing. You know, we're gonna be in the river.
Oh, that is awesome.
Yeah, no, we can do that kind of thing. But I know that American culture, Disney World, is still popular, and it shocks me when I did a little research a couple weeks ago on the price of a ticket to go to Disney World for a day, $150 a person.
They just raised it.
Yeah. Disney raised it. How can families afford that? And is it as popular now? I mean, are people starting to look at other things?
It's still very popular. That's why Disney introduced finally surge pricing, you know, the equivalent of surge pricing, although it's not too much for premium. You know, look, a Disney ticket's expensive, but it's an opportunity of a lifetime. And they're still, it's not like Disney's printing money. It takes a lot of money to operate those parks and to provide those experiences for people. And I think they do a really great job.
Wow, to stand in a line for an average hour and 10 minutes.
You taking your family on a trip?
Experience. We'll be away this summer, yes, but we're having a baby in June, so.
I know it. Oh, that's so great.
Yay.
Steve, real quick, the best month to travel is when?
It depends where you're going. You know, I don't like hot weather, so if you're going to the Caribbean and you don't want to go there in the summer, Europe is great. In terms of avoiding long lines, I would say go earlier in June, stay away from the first couple of weeks of August.
Okay, good advice. Steve Hafner, good to see you. Thank you so much,
CEO
of Kayak. Final thoughts?